Hello everybody, it's the 1st of June today and I'm going to be working on a couple of my Royal Alders and starting with this one, which is the larger of the two. And if you were following along in the playlist, you'll know that I attempted to graft 3 cuttings that I'd taken onto this tree to try and create a more effective root base. They do seem to have taken. I did cut them back, but now they're growing again, but I do see there's some gap there, so I'm going to cut them back, but I'm not going to cut them all the way back, if that makes sense. Can you see what I'm doing? Let me move you in a bit closer. So this tree had a shortage of good surface roots, so I had taken some cuttings and I grafted in this one, and this one at the back, and the grafts seem to have taken, but I don't know if you can see there is some gappage, which means they may not have taken all the way. So I'm going to cut them back again. They were originally cut back here. My plan was to chop them right back hard to the trunk. I'm still going to take it back quite a way, but not all the way, because if it dies back it might not graft in if it's not fully grafted already, if that makes sense. Put that back, and I'll let these regrow for another season, and then this horrible chunk can hopefully be carved away and leaving the root in place. That's the plan. Alders being very thirsty plants that need a lot of water. This pot has a little matching tray, and I try to keep the tree sat in that full of water throughout the hottest parts of the summer, but even during now spring and autumn, and then I turn it upside down over winter, so that the tree doesn't sit in wet all winter and freeze. One job I do need to do every now and again is get in and just remove some of these roots before they get too thick, where the tree crests out into the water. That basically gives the tree cause and pause. The slopes there, get rid of those. I don't want the roots expanding and cracking the pot. That would not be a good plan. By the same token, you also don't want this tray filled with root, so there's no room for water. So as for the top of the tree, I've been letting it grow out a little bit, and it's now time to prune it back into a semblance of shape and get it to back bud and look a little less shaggy than it does now. The branch structure is kind of informal upright, but it's a little more loose and natural than a full-on informal upright. The branch placing is a little more random, but the longer I've been getting into the hobby, the more I've preferred a slightly more natural approach and style. That's not to say I don't have trees that are grown in more traditional Japanese styles. I do have a formal upright and some informal uprights and things, but all in all, I generally prefer my trees looking a little more natural. So I don't mind the odd bar branch or two if it looks right to mine eyes. Then I'm happy with it. As I said before in other videos, at the end of the day, I have to look at a tree on a bench every day when I come out in the garden or when I'm watering or whatever, so they've got to look good to me first and foremost. So I'll shut up and just keep trimming. Okay, so that's pretty much it. There's a couple of small branches in here that I just want to remove because they're kind of obscuring the trunk line. You can see where this was grown on for quite some time and then had a considerable chop just here, which is healing quite nicely, and then the rest of the crown has been built from that. And you can see here I have a branch that's almost on top of another branch, but again, as I said, it looks good to me. I like it that way. It's got depth in the back, and so I'm keeping it. Let me know if you think I'm mad. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Okay, just to prove to you that I do have more traditional looking trees, here's the second of the Royal Alders, and this was a cutting from the first one. It's not a species you see around in garden centres and things, hardly ever, if at all, these days. I absolutely love the delicate leaf compared to the more classical alder of the trees I featured in a video a couple of weeks ago with their rounded leaves, smooth rounded leaves. These have deeply veined, deeply cut, rather altogether different leaf form, although in most other aspects they're very similar. So yeah, this was a cutting. You can see I wired it into this S shape a few years ago, left the wire on a little bit too long unfortunately, and have been developing it ever since, and I've allowed it to grow out quite strongly this year, quite vigorously. Now I'm going to give it a good chop back, and hopefully in a few weeks it'll thank me for that by throwing out a lot more shoots, and then they will probably need to be wired next winter, and obviously I'll be able to make a video of that, all things going to plan. So again, it's just quite a, some might say, severe chop back, but if you're not careful, trees will get very leggy on you quite quickly as they elongate between the leaf nodes. Suddenly a branch that you had that was only a few inches long is 1.5 foot and looking completely out of scale, which is fine if you need to thicken the branch up, you can grow it like that. But when you're looking for shapeliness and ramification, sometimes you don't want a branch that's that long. And this tree is typically apically dominant, hence it's throwing up a lot of shoots straight in the air, which isn't, again, helpful of it. And some of these will need chopping right back, probably again later in the season. Okay, so that looks, I think you'll agree, that looks better. Another branch there that's growing a little bit too vertically. Yeah, as I say, some of these will need wiring at some point, but this tree grows really fast, so I don't want to wire it at this time of year, because inevitably we'll get wire scarring and cutting in before you can blink. Okay, just want to check the bottom of the pot. No, we're okay. We haven't got too much root growth in there at the moment. Have to keep an eye on that throughout the summer like the other one. And we'll see how that goes. Quick 360 again then. And yeah, definitely some of these branches will need wiring down. But again, as I said, repeating myself, I know, I'll do that in the winter. That's quite a lot of material. Pruned off both those trees. It always looks more when you see it like this. Most of these pieces would probably root if I just put them in a glass of water. But as I've said on other videos, I am trying to be good. I already have two quite large trees of this particular species, and I still have another one waiting in the wings, which has grown like this naturally. I took it as a cutting, it got stuck on the bench and knocked over, and has grown with this natural kink in it, and I'm trying to decide whether it would make a semi-cascade, a windswept, or whether I just wire it up again. Let me know what you would do with that in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Please, please, please do look after yourselves. Do all the YouTube things, the liking, the subscribing, the commenting, especially the commenting, but most of all, stay safe everybody.